Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. The Practical Guitarist Podcast is brought to you by Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Great Lakes Guitar Pickups provides fantasy tones at prices a practical guitarist will love. Featuring top-notch construction, attention to detail, and a fully custom product, if you can dream it, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups can probably build it. Follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Are you a regular listener? Why not? David here reminding you of all the ways you can participate in the Practical Guitarist Podcast. Subscribe using your chosen podcast app. Review us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or Google Play. Find our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Practical Guitarist or on Twitter as @PractGuitarist. Support the show. Merchandise is available in our Threadless store at practicalguitaristpodcast.threadless.com. And donate to us via Patreon, available at patreon.com/practicalguitarist. Reach out to us directly via email at questions@practicalguitarist.com. Hello, Jim.
Hi, dude.
There's not enough freaking coffee. I almost dropped the F-bomb like 2 seconds into the show.
No, yeah, we can't do that.
Sorry,
Tom. We're not doing that for you.
There's not enough freaking coffee in my house right now. I just had like the last half cup from this morning.
Oh, God.
And yesterday I got the jitters so bad because I had probably 10 cups before noon. And I ate like a breakfast bowl, and that was it. And I literally got like coffee angry, and it was not a good situation. So this morning I made like 6 cups, and I drank all 6, and I had like 2 cups left over. And I was this afternoon I was like, man, my sinuses are starting to get all messed up. Like I need some coffee, and I was gonna make some, and then I looked, and I was like, oh, there's like 2 cups left. Like it's enough for my mug. Like I'll just fill that up. So that
was it.
I am fueled today.
So I tried something new this week. I tried conditioner. Now I'm in my 50s, and I just wash my hair.
You
and
have
see
never
how nice it looks?
Jim, we're men. First off, many men don't use conditioner.
No,
but
I know, but I'm older. My hair's starting to get a little more frail, right?
Yeah.
So I was
much
told
better now, huh?
So I was told try conditioner. So I bought 2 different types of conditioners. I bought a hydrating formula because my hair gets full of static. My hair looked greasy in an hour. It looked like I had not taken a shower. And so day 2, I washed my hair and I used smoothing. And my hair looked greasy in an hour.
All right.
So I was like, all right, that's it. I can't use conditioner. I just can't use it.
Can I? No.
I'm probably using too much.
Jim. Listen. Conditioner is one of those things. It's a very personal choice.
Yep.
There are millions of different products on the market. My wife can tell you, she is a licensed cosmetologist. She can tell you what will work for you, will work very well. Here's the thing. Like, conditioner, you buy the box stuff at Walmart.
Yep.
It's not the same as the stuff you get from like Cosmoprof or someplace like that where my wife has, her discounts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Unfortunately, where do you think I go?
I have luxury,
I know you do. And you have beautiful hair, David.
I do.
I just want people to know that don't get to see David every week. He has beautiful hair.
Except for the thinning, the receding hairline and all that goodness.
Hey, I'm in my late 50s. I've got pretty good hair up here for a guy.
I'm 34 years old, and if you saw how much hair is missing here,
I'm not really that bad. My kids, I've had many people comment about how good my hair looks. Notice I'm using a pop filter. Oh shit. Almost fell off. Sorry, Tom.
No, all right. So here's the thing, Jim. Conditioner.
Yep.
It's not going to help your guitar playing.
Ah, man. Neither will this pop filter that keeps falling down.
No, but in all reality, like your hair,
I tightened it so much it went right off.
Your hair is not supposed to look like there's no grease in it whatsoever. It's supposed to look a little bit on that side. So,
I didn't know that. I don't know.
Because you have natural oils in your hair. Right?
Yes,
like it's supposed to protect.
I can tell you right now, like it would look like I didn't wash my hair in weeks.
Well, I wonder if your hair's like reacting. It's like, please no, because it just never had that happen before. And anyway, long story short, talk to my wife. She could get you something. She hook you up. Oh my gosh.
I'm
Jim
holding my pop
he is
filter.
literally holding a pop filter in his hand right now, folks.
Because the microphone stand on this. So I'm using a Yeti, guys. Using this Yeti.
I'm gonna have to cut so much bass because he's like moving the Yeti around. And like,
I was. And unfortunately, the pop filter won't sit on the Yeti base, which means I'm going to have to somehow get the Yeti, which it does have. It does have a standard microphone.
You don't have to hold it the whole episode. I'll just cut the bass for this one. It's no big deal. But the next couple of weeks, we'll figure it out.
Better. See?
All right.
I got it in the corner of my microphone stand.
So some crazy,
my keyboard.
Some crazy stuff happened last week.
Yes.
Wednesday, episode drop day. Last week, I got the wild hair that I needed to stop saving money for like a really expensive guitar, and I need to pick something around the $1,000 category.
Okay.
On the show last week, we talked about Ibanez AZs. Obviously, the Premier Series is like $1,300 to $1,400, depending on where you go.
Yep.
I got a deal. Actually, it was offered a deal on Reverb for $9.99. I did not take that deal. I actually paid a little bit more than that, but I paid because I wanted the warranty and stuff from Sweetwater. I won't disclose the actual amount. You can inquire. Yeah, no. They'll give you a similar deal, I'm sure, if you work hard enough. And so first off, like, I don't like haggling. It's just not my thing.
I think it also helps to have a good rapport with your sales engineer.
Absolutely. But the fact that I went to a Brandt over there and I was like, hey, I don't really want to haggle, and I really want to give you the business. Like, get as close to this number as you can. That's right. And I literally gave him the conversation between me and the other dealer, and was like,
"You're not disclosing the other dealer."
I just wanted to disclose what was being offered,
right.
And he came close enough, and so I said, "Fine, I'm buying from Sweetwater." I could have bought from Good Time, and I felt really guilty about it, but there was something specific about the one that was on Sweetwater that I really wanted. It's 6.6 pounds.
Yeah.
This guitar is like I handed my S500 and my AZ to my wife, and she had the S500 in her strong hand, and she's like, I can still tell that is way lighter. My S500, I think, is just north of 10 pounds. I think it's 10.2 pounds.
Wow, that is like
Northern
heavy
Ash.
Les Paul heavy.
It's Northern Ash. It's a big heavy guitar. My Les Paul is about the same weight. In fact, I think they are the same weight.
I just played an S500 today that was built in the 80s. It was an original 80s.
Yeah, like the different body though, right?
Yeah. And it wasn't as heavy as the S500 that was on the floor.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think so like mine, I ordered Ash. It's a beautiful looking guitar, but I think it's Northern Ash, which if you don't know, Northern Ash is typically heavier than Southern Ash. It has to do with the way that they age.
It does, yeah.
But anyway, I have no complaints. The guitar sounds like I'm trying to think of something that's not going to be offensive. It sounds really good. It sounds like a big,
How can a guitar sound
hammer.
Offensive?
I mean,
when I play this guitar...
the guitar doesn't sound offensive, but the things I would use to describe the way the guitar sounds might be offensive.
The guitar sounds offensive. Every time I play it, it uses offensive words. Words that would not be politically correct today.
It's like if you were to use a Stratocaster to play Hammer Smash Face from like Corpse. No, it definitely has a Strat sound to it, but it's way beefier, way meatier, and I'm sure you can relate with playing the vintage one. That had the bigger MFTs though, right? Like the big thick ones look like P90s.
Yes, they were really. Yeah. You can see it on the Virginia Beach.
I kind of want a GNL Skyhawk. It might not be there anymore.
There was a guy eyeing it the minute it came in.
Oh yeah, dude! Like those guitars are highly sought after.
Because a guy I used to play with, another band, he had sold it to them, and I'm looking to see if it's there.
I'm kind of in the market for a GNL Skyhawk, like the CLF Skyhawk, the new one. I wouldn't mind having one. I just wasn't going to put out. Look, the Skyhawk is not that expensive guitar. I think it's like $1,300. I think it's right around the same price I paid for mine. But it's not stainless steel frets. And that was one of the big, like I said, no, I'm not buying it if it doesn't have stainless steel frets. So that really narrowed the playing field. And I had a giant freak out, like baby temper tantrum on Saturday morning when I got my guitar, because I took it out and I played it for like 5 minutes and I tested all the pickups, and all the different selector positions. And my wife comes up to me right before we're walking out the door because we had to go take care of some stuff. She goes, "That sounds like your other Strats." And like I was already in the mode, like I bought a very expensive import guitar, and I'm like, when I heard that, my heart sank because I was like, I've been looking for any reason not to want this guitar.
Yep.
And if there's any reason, it's like that one, right? So we went out. I was just madder than hell the whole time I was out because I'm like, I'm gonna have to ship this thing back. And then here's the real reason I was mad. I bought this guitar and I used my Sweetwater card, and then I paid it off the next day. The whole balance, which was that and a little bit more, some stuff over from Gear Fest and things like that. So, all told, I put out more money than I paid for the guitar, and I wasn't going to get some of that money back. And I'm like, I was intending to spend that. Part of me was like feeling guilty about it because I'm like, well, I probably should have just paid off the card anyway. But then the other part of me is like, dude, it's going to take you so much longer to save up that money because we organized our finances and so that I can still have a little bit of money to buy gear, but it's not what I was spending before. So anyway, I got home. We had lunch. I came in. I picked up the guitar. I put my Triple Crown patch on my Kemper, my profile, and went to town. And immediately in the humbucker position, I was like, "No, this is what I'm looking for."
Yeah,
like this.
I'm telling you, that humbucker in the bridge is
it's good. The Hyperion pickups are really good in that guitar.
I mean, I have the Strat, right? And as much as I bitch about the fact that humbucker is hotter, when I want to punch in a solo, man, that thing is just right there.
I'll tell you though, those Hyperion pickups are super well balanced.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's like a low output PAF in the bridge and high output single coils to bring them like right even. And it sounds like it's supposed to. When you go from the neck to the bridge, there's no volume dropout. There's none of that kind of stuff. I don't feel a difference in sustain a whole lot. I would have liked if the whole guitar's like output level was like a dB and a half louder, but it'll get me by. I just would have liked to push the amp harder, but I'm like, I can always throw a boost in front of it, whatever, and adjust it with the Kemper. So it's not a huge deal. It's just one of those things where it's like, I'll live with it, you know?
Right.
This guitar's got some compromises. Some things I don't like about it. I don't know how I'm going to get on with the roasted maple, baked maple, whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean?
You don't like the baked maple neck?
No. So here's the thing. When I was playing with the AC off the other day, and I wasn't sweating, but like my hands, I could feel them getting sticky, and it was because my body was reacting with the finish. This does not have a tung oil neck like my Kiesel does.
Oh yeah.
And that's no issues there. I mean that neck is it's brilliant. And I have a feeling that the Ibanez will get that way over time, but it's just not something that's happening out of the box. And I'm kind of hoping that this guitar is one of those ones where I like bond with it and then I don't want to sell it. I could see myself in like 2 or 3 years being like, you know what, it's time for me to get something else and like throwing this on the block. But right now, this is kind of what I need. I need a guitar that can kind of double as both the S500 and the other things, so I can go to these jam nights and stuff and have both my like spectrums of things that I do on tap.
Well, obviously, I've got the 2 Strats. You can see the red one behind me.
Yeah,
that is single. Then I got the deluxe Telly, which is just a Telly version of the same thing.
Yeah,
and then I've got my other Strat, which is HSS. So I can understand that. I had the bug. You probably knew over the week.
Yeah, he couldn't stop. Folks,
I kept looking.
He cannot keep his eyes on the prize. No, this man can have a Kemper.
Yeah, well, it would take a few weeks, but yeah. And so, I'm not as far away as you think. I have some cash. I fell into some cash. I don't want. So I'm still going to get the Kemper. Still, the eye on the prize is I'm not buying it right now because I can't use it right now, except for using it at home. Not using it because for me, using it because it's just a tool. It is just going to be a tool. It's going to be for the gigs, and I want to get everything at the same time. I want to get the FR. I want to get the pedal, and I want to get the Kemper, and I want to get it all in. And so that's just me. I know I'm weird.
I hate to interrupt you, but there's something you said in there, and I want to stop because Jeff was talking. We have for those of you who don't know, we have a Patreon. If you join the
Yeah.
Patreon, you get invited to the Facebook Messenger group. That's
That was a
associated
point I had
with
for later, by the way, because
with
I
it.
know what you're going to say.
Yes, and we're going to come back to this, but
We're gonna come back
I
to
want to
that.
say this right now. Jim's calling, and just point this out. Jim's calling the Kemper
A tool. That's right.
We're going to come back to that.
We're
So
going to
go
come
ahead.
back to that. And I actually had that as a note for tonight, by the way.
Yeah.
And that's what made me go, you know what? We need to have and
That's
our
a
Patreon
really
users,
important description
listeners,
discussion.
Yeah, we want to have another group chat where we have everybody do a voice thing. We want to have another show where we get the Patreons in here and do the thing.
We can have a little bit of a discussion here. I think we need to show Discord.
Yeah. We do need to show Discord. Because I think that a show in Discord and show Instagram would be fun. So anyway,
well, I have an Instagram for the show, but I don't do a lot with it.
Yeah, I don't either, and that's the problem. We don't do a lot.
If you don't have credentials, I'm giving you credentials because I think you're in guitar stores a lot more than I am.
I'm in a guitar store a lot,
so
like probably 3 times a week.
And all those clips you get from the open mics and stuff can go in there as well. So
yeah, that's true. And I had, well, I'll talk about those in a minute because I really want to go back to those. So anyway, yeah, it came from going to an open mic and watching a guy do something. And I played his, and I was like, oh, I love this guitar. So I was like, I had one of these. I got rid of it. It was stupid. And so yeah, it's one I've had. Anyway, so I
don't know about this. I'm laughing because I know.
Hold on, yeah. No, but so I used one. I'm still keeping it a secret here. So I saw a used one. And I went into Guitar Center. I said, hey guys, I want to ask about a used one in another store. Can you get it in for me to play without me putting down more than 20%? And they said, yeah, you can pay shipping and get it in. 20%, we'll bring it in, you can play it. All right, let's call the store. I just need to know 2 things. Has it got the original case? And does it have locking tuners? So they call the store. It's got locking tuners, got the original case. All right, that's cool. And I said, he says, and it's got DiMarzio super distortions in it. I said, who the took I don't want. I mean, I appreciate the people that like them. They are very popular metal.
Jim, I'm gonna stop you right there. Anybody who rips a PAF style pickup out of a guitar and puts super distortions in it, thinking that that's going to increase the value or thinking that that somehow is something someone else wants now, you're wrong. The reality is that's a very specific thing that you've done to that guitar. Because most people who put super distortions in them back in the day were trying to push the amp harder. Nobody needs to push the amp harder now. We have master volumes.
That's just it. Yeah, the super distortions, and that's the that's the Nita Strauss guitar there. She has a super distortion bridge, and as much as I love that guitar, I don't like that. So then I was like, all right, now I'm going down this rabbit hole because I'm a rabbit hole person. And I'm in the rabbit hole. So I said, okay, you guys got leftovers. You guys got leftovers from last year in the thing. Can you take a look? Maybe order one in. He goes, and the manager, who's very straightforward with me, always straightforward with me, says, well, you know what? If I get one in, as much as you think that a used one, it won't be any better. He goes, these have been hanging on the wall most likely for over a year now, almost 2 years. You're probably not going to see anything spectacular in there. And they might be more beat up than normal. I said, well, give it a shot. Let's take a look. And he says, well, we got one left in stock. It's black, which is what I was looking at. He says, black. I can get it in. Let's call. He goes, let's call. It's in Fairfax, Virginia. So it would have been here tomorrow.
Yeah, like,
because I did this yesterday.
Right.
Yeah. So I'd have it here tomorrow. All right. That'd be great. So I go, oh, that's awesome. So he calls Fairfax and they say, yeah, you don't want it. It's got a broken headstock.
I think we're getting closer to narrowing down what Jim was looking at here.
It's not what you think because I am doing a PAF one, but that's next. All right. So, or not a PAF one. I'm sorry. A P90. I'm looking at a P90 Les Paul right now. Yeah. But anyway, with the Kemper, by the way. So, I got this guitar. I took it off the wall and I played it. I played it through 3 amps. I loved it. I love the weight, loved everything about it. And I said, "Yep, this is the guitar I shouldn't have got rid of."
Stop selling crap.
I know. That's why I did not get rid of any of the guitars hanging behind me.
Right.
I added, but I did not subtract. So I did not sell anything. So here it is. Give me 1 second here.
I don't.
Big reveal. What is it? What do you think it is?
It's either going to be one of those CEs or it's going to be that Les Paul.
Nope. It's not the Les Paul. The Les Paul is next. By the way, the 50s Les Paul with the P90s is next.
Yeah.
But hold on. Here it is.
I'm gonna laugh. I'm gonna laugh if it's something silly. If he got an EC 1000, I'm just gonna crack up. Oh, you should have kept the Pelham Blue. Jim bought an SG. Folks, Jim bought an SG. What am I supposed to do with you? It's the wrong color too.
It's a beautiful color. I love the black. I'm sorry, but
it's not a color. It's an absence of color.
It's an absence of color. That's absolutely right. It's a total like whole.
So what year? What year is it?
It's a 2019 standard.
Oh, you paid. You paid.
Oh no, I didn't. See, that's just it. So luckily, let's just say similar to your deal. I was there. I'm a good customer. These are good people to me. They really cut me a deal.
Well,
because I went in there intending to spend $1,000. I didn't spend $1,000, but I didn't spend $1,500 either.
No,
which is what.
No, and I would never expect you to pay even the map price on that right now, especially after the Firebird X thing and all the other stuff they've had going on lately.
Yep. So I got this year's guitar at last year's sale.
No one's going to make you disclose it, Jim.
No. But it was good, and I got my 10% discount.
Yeah, so they're willing. This is I always think about the show Top Gear, right? If you ever watch like the first couple seasons of Top Gear, they had the guy that would come out and talk about like what the best cars to buy right now are because they'll make like insane deals on them because they're not selling or whatever. The reason why I bring this up is because this reminds me of that kind of situation. There are certain guitars that you can go in and you can wheel and deal on, like specifically ones that are not popular. And right now, SGs are probably the least popular thing that Gibson's making.
That's it.
And so you can go in and you can make insane
pretty close
and talk them down, like even at Guitar Center. In fact, I saw a guy a couple weeks back looking at an SG, and they're like, "Can we make you an offer?" That was what Guitar Center told the guy. Was like, "We'd like to move this," you know.
Yep. Right now is the time to talk to them about any.
Gibsons in general are probably a good thing to wheel and deal on right now. But I think specifically guitars like SGs, 335s, they're not going to deal with you. Maybe you might get a deal on Les Paul because they do sit, especially the higher end ones, like the standards and above. Actually, the standards probably they won't make a deal with you on now. But anything above that, like a custom.
The classics, they'll make a deal with you on right now.
Yeah.
Traditionals, they're making deals
anything
on.
Prior to 2018.
Anything that's a 20. Studios, they're moving like crazy. You wouldn't believe the studios are.
Yeah, but I think studios are probably one of their more popular models anyway.
They go out the door.
But like SGs, fast. Man, I have seen a lot of them go locally for like peanuts and new ones. I bought the one I had for like $850 or something.
I bought this guitar for used price, and not say.
Well, that's exactly, Jim. Like $850. That's craziness for a standard.
Yeah, it's insane.
Now, granted, you're back in SG territory. Anything that you miss about other guitars when you're playing your SG?
The Les Paul. I mix. You know what I miss about the Les Paul? And this is the thing that I will say.
I'm not surprised you're going to tell me you missed the Les Paul because I know you like that guitar, and I was really shocked that you traded it in.
Figured tops. So they have a Les Paul in right now. I told them, I said, if I could do that today, I would buy it right now. They have a Les Paul traditional, which is way lower than the price they've got it listed online, because you walk in the store, they usually, and plus I know what the deal they give me. So I could get it down close to $2,000. Let me tell you something. The traditional that they've got in the store right now, you can look down. You know how you look like like not straight on, but down it. And it's got the most figured top I have ever seen on Les Paul. Like the bubble on it is just so, I'm going to use this word, folks. Don't take it wrong. So sexy. It's just this gorgeous rounded top that just, you put your hand on it and your arm just, everything about it just goes, yep.
It's funny because you're talking about Les Pauls and all I can think is discomfort.
I love.
I know, but they're not for everybody though. And the other thing is, I'll share this nugget with our listeners and also you. The best Les Paul I've ever played was, and this is going to sound absolutely insane because I've got Chicago Music Exchange local to me. Like I go down there probably twice a year. I mean, it's not right here, but like I can go down there twice a year. And I've seen stuff in our local stores. I played not any of the 60s ones I've played, not any of the 70s ones I played, not even the 80s ones. I played Nick Bongers at Gearfest. He's got
that 50s.
He's got a 90s Les Paul.
Oh, I thought you were talking about that 50s one he got.
No, he's got a 90s. That's not him. I don't consider that Les Paul. He's got a 90s Les Paul standard.
Yeah.
I believe it's a standard.
Yeah.
And that thing was sick. But he's also got his pickups in it. And it's properly set up, and it just
that makes a big difference.
It sounded really good.
It makes the one thing I can say. It's because our guitar. So most places, most guitar centers, they hand you the guitar, get out the door.
Right.
My guitar center said, "What strings do you want?" John's over here, who does our setups. John's going to set up your guitar for it. That's what they do for me every time, not just that guitar, but every time. And I think that makes a huge difference. So they've got they got a used one in today. When I walked in, they got a used one in. It came in. It was a gold top and gold back and gold back on it. Right. It was gold all the way around. I played it for about 20 seconds. I was like, oh my God, this is a gorgeous guitar. And just as they hung it up when I was done, another guy pulled it down, and that was the sale.
Went right out.
Gone. I'm telling you, Les Paul's, as much as people are yelling and screaming, Gibson sucks and this and that and the other thing, where I am, people still are loving.
I know people. So I'm going to say something really unpopular, Jim. I think they're a status symbol.
They are.
For a lot of people, like, it doesn't matter whether Les Paul sounds good or not. They'll buy one just as a status symbol thing. And it's that turns me off right away. Like I know, like I've played good Les Pauls too, but my whole thing is like I don't think guitars should be ornaments. I think we should play them.
No, absolutely. And so that's why there's a right now. I'm eyeing a limited edition Bigsby setup, Gibson Les Paul gold top with it's a 50s. It's a 56 reissue.
You had me until you said Bigsby.
Yeah.
Which means you never had me.
Yeah. Once you say Bigsby, it is a pain in the rump.
I don't hate. I don't hate Les Paul.
The biggest pain. I don't. You know what the pain in the rump is about a Les Paul with a Bigsby? Putting that damn thing in a case.
No. Worst thing about Les Paul with a Bigsby, the fact that it has a Bigsby
is a Les Paul with a Bigsby.
Yeah. Well,
exactly.
the Bigsby's the worst. Look, I know that there are people that really like Bigsby systems. But in terms of like restringing and things like that, they're the worst to deal with. I'll never
such
own
a pain
one.
In the rump.
Just playing around with them in the store, like looking how you have to actually restring them. I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah. Don't do. It's not like a Floyd Rose. You're not going to block that thing, and that thing is a pain in the rump. If you have never changed strings on a Bigsby,
you haven't lived.
It's just like when people tell me they want a 12-string Rickenbacker. I go, oh, sure.
Yeah.
Wait till you change those strings.
The first time you change those strings, you're going to be like, I don't want a 12-string Rickenbacker anymore.
No. That is such a pain in the rump. The 12-string Rickenbacker, for those who've never had one, it's not like a regular 12-string. It's not. Woo! It's not in a line. So every one of the tuning keys is offset.
Yep.
And the problem is, now with the old ones, if you get a really old one, if you take the string out and you just leave things go, tuning key goes click.
Yep.
It's gone. Oh no, how do I get this back in there?
Yeah.
And then You just it's oh god.
Can I since we're talking about 12-string Rickenbacker?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have experience with one, right?
Yep.
And it's a 60s model, right? Like
Yeah.
it's from like
Uh-huh.
68, 69 in that period. And it has this thing on it called the Drop 6. What the Drop
Yeah.
6 actually is it's a little claw that sits
Yep.
underneath like where the pickups are at, and it will pull down. You actually like maneuver it, and it pulls down 6 of the strings to
Six
the
of it, yeah.
fretboard, so that you theoretically won't be strumming them while you're playing it. That is the most asinine contraption I have ever seen in my life.
I know.
Like it's
I know
a
exactly
cool idea, but in modern playing,
But
like how could you even use that? Because if you
You-
do Drop 6, you can't bend.
nope.
You
Nope.
I honestly when I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool because then you could take a 6, 12 string and make it a 6. But then thinking about it, I was like, but that really doesn't make it anything like a 6-string guitar. It just drops 6 of the strings.
It doesn't help out at all, and it doesn't make it easier to play. And it's ridiculous. I know. I played one. Who made that? That wasn't Dan Electro. That was,
That's Rickenbacker.
Rickenbacker. Yep.
Yeah, that's
I'll tell you. That's a company we don't talk about much. None of us,
Well, it's-
because you just don't see a lot of them.
yeah.
But they are great. One thing you can say about a Rickenbacker, other than the 12 strings, I'm not a fan of the 12 strings. That doesn't mean they don't sound great, because that jingle jangle sound
It's its
is
own
all
thing.
over
It's
those
its own
great
thing.
60s. It's just you got to be a tech from heck to get them. My thing about the Rickenbackers is you buy a Rickenbacker and it is good.
Yeah,
It's
it does what
that's it.
it does what it says it's going to do.
It is, and it is It's not trying to. You're not going to push pull knob. It's not trying to be a Stratocaster. It's not trying to be a Les Paul.
Yeah.
It's not trying to be. It is trying to be exactly what it is. It's freaking Rickenbacker.
Well, so this one has Rico sound, so it has the 2 stereo outputs, and
that's
it's
so
a
awesome.
really really cool guitar, and it's a vintage one, and it's still in the possession of basically I believe he's the original owner.
Wow, that's cool.
But what's crazy about Rickenbacker to me is that they're very unique. Like there's no guitar that plays like them, and even today their distribution and the way that they sell guitars is like completely esoteric. They don't publish prices. They don't like the dealers are not allowed to sell them online.
The dealers are also not allowed to publish the prices.
Yeah. So
you have to go in.
Yep. So if you see them online, like if you find a dealer, Chicago Music Exchange is a dealer. I don't even think they put them up. They have them.
You know what?
They'll put
you know
them
what
up.
they can do? Okay, so the way around it for the dealers, I know this isn't going to get back to Rickenbacker, because I doubt very much those people listen to our show, which is not that big. The dealers can actually list the guitars as used. Then you can publish price.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, they're not used, and they could get in trouble and lose their distribution contract for that.
I know.
And companies do that. In fact,
I've seen it.
The way I got that $999 deal on the premium AZ this weekend was it was listed as used. And then I inquired.
Is still doing that.
I inquired and I said, I can get a used AZ right now from Guitar Center for like $750, $800. Why would I buy yours? And I was like, give me a better offer and I'll consider it. And then they came back and they said, well, we can give you a new one in case for $999. And I went, that's the guitar that you have listed. That's not like, I'm not stupid. I know what that meant. You'll have papers and it'll be warranted and everything. I'm thinking, yeah, but I'm going to have to like go to you to get that warranty repair because you're the only one that's going to honor that warranty.
That's right. Because you sold it as used.
Right. I'm not going to have a receipt. I'm not, like it was the whole thing. So that's kind of why I balked on that deal. Cause I'm like, as much as I don't think I'll need a warrant, cause like I just pay to have the work done. I don't care. I don't plan on having a lot of work done to it. That was cool with me. So anyway, Jim, you ended up with your guitar. I ended up with mine. Are you still getting your Harley Benton?
I am.
All right.
Yep.
All right. I'm excited.
Yep,
I may have talked to another podcast host about buying a Harley Benton.
Yep. I am ordering it probably this week. It takes like 3 weeks, I think, or more to get overseas, but
it depends on what he's willing to sell it for. but I'm interested in a Harley Benton that somebody else owns. And I inquired about it. It's not even on the market yet. So I'm like, gonna get rid of it. Like
Oh yeah, I think I
I
know
might
who
be
you're
able to
talking about.
sweep some money your way.
Do I know the person?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I do. All right. So yeah, the thing that I now I'm sitting here eyeing freaking Rickenbackers. Get away, Jim.
No,
because
Jim.
I've wanted a 360 Maple Glow for a long time. But anyway, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. But anyway, so because it's only no, it's not because I can't afford it.
Like $4,000, dude.
No, it's only $2,000. But the thing about it is if I got a 360 Maple Glow, it's only good for that.
Yeah, it's only good if you want to play the bird,
Moody Blues,
the birds,
and the birds. Yeah, that's about it. So anyway, and I'm not writing that kind of music.
Do some REM? Come on.
Yeah.
I could just see him losing my religion.
Yeah, or what is it, Tom Petty?
Yeah. I mean, the Heartbreakers are pretty much that's like all Rickenbackers and Telecasters.
Yep.
Yeah. How do you make a
50s Les Pauls?
How do you make a Heartbreakers record? Telecasters and Rickenbackers. That's it.
12-string Rickenbacker.
Oh, and AC30s.
Yeah, and vintage AC30s, hand wired.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about the Harley Benton. We were talking about the Harley Benton. I want to do something real quick, folks. This is kind of an outtake. I'm going to do a commercial for another podcast. Our folks at 60 Cycle Hum did a really cool thing.
Yeah, that video, it touched my heart when I saw it, and I got to see it early.
Yep.
It touched my heart.
I literally got a tear in my eye. I just want to give a shout out to Ryan Burke.
Dude, he's the
for
freaking
what he
coolest dude I know.
Yeah,
stupid.
You are so freaking cool. I can't stand you, you son of a whatever. But you are an awesome guy, and we love you, man.
Dude, I can't imagine and I did that. I gave away my first guitar to somebody, but I can't it wasn't like that. It wasn't a stranger on the street, and it wasn't it wasn't perfectly good. Like it had been you know what I mean? Like that that whole situation was just it was outstanding, and I hope this video just explodes,
skyrockets. Share it everywhere, people.
Yes.
Get that thing out there.
We need more acts like that. That's how we get
need more
people to actually play guitar, is to do things that inspire people. And that was
I could see the look in that kid's eyes. Yeah. And it was like, wow. I could that was probably one of the most sincere things I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, dude.
Because there's so much crap.
I know he had it in him too. Because when you meet him, you'll see how genuine he actually is. And dude, I'm not surprised that he did it, but it's just it's still one of those moments where it's like, yeah, he deserves all the credit he gets for that one.
Yep.
I don't know, man. So one of the things that's been driving me crazy, and I posted about it in our Patreon message thing today. Like I just joined all of the fanboy groups I'm a part of, like the Helix group, the Kemper KPA group, a couple of, because they're filled with negativity. We've talked about this on the show before, but something happened.
I want to talk about one.
Something happened to me with somebody who's kind of a rogue YouTuber. I'm not going to go into who he is, but
Captain Negative.
But I am going to tell the story. So we know this guy. We've had a dozen conversations with him over the past 2 years. He was involved in Shengzai. He was one of the guys that was receiving guitars from Shengzai, and then he turned around and we found out because of that, he'd been accepting Chinese guitars from companies for years, and he had a successful YouTube channel doing it until YouTube, of course, decided that that's piracy, copyrighted material, and so they dumped him. And then he went to Facebook, which doesn't really care. And he's got a successful, Facebook's video channel is not, you're not successful if you're on there, right? You know what I mean? So there's just not a big viewership. But anyway, he has a channel over there now. And apparently he's trying to get back into YouTube. So he's got a new channel. And a couple days ago, he bought, he was in the Helix group, he bought a Kemper KPA, or the stage, the Kemper stage, right? And he was shooting him out with his Helix floor. And So I had like a really strange interaction with him in the sense that I opened my mouth and I said, the things you're saying right now are complete garbage. And I'm like, I have experience with both products too, and your experience is completely different than mine. And completely different than many people's that are in the KPA group or the Helix group. I'm getting confused. And I'm okay with that. You wanna have your conversation and do your thing and like not like a product, that's fine. The problem is when you start saying things like, oh, well, this one's built like crap. I'm like, according to who?
Yeah.
Or the user interface is terrible. Well, really, in this product, user interface is important, but it's not as important as sound quality because
I want to say something about that user.
Important in how you use it.
I want to address that user interface thing. If you were going to buy one of the floor units based on user interface alone, the Headrush would win because that's got a touch.
Oh, I was getting there. Yeah,
that you drag and drop. So you should have said, well, then why didn't you buy a Headrush?
Well, I didn't want to.
Anyway, go ahead.
I wasn't trying to start a fight publicly. I'm not that dude. So as a part of this conversation, he came back and he sent me a message and he said, like, let's have a conversation about it. I'd really like to learn to use the Kemper properly and I'm having issues with it. And I really want to like this unit. So I'm taking him at his word, right? And I think I'll share some theories on what happened at the end, but basically, I talk him through the process. As part of this conversation, he reveals to me that his favorite amp that he's ever owned was a Spider 3. Now, don't Jim. I know the immediate reaction is to laugh, and I agree. I laughed. I literally
that's mean of me. It really is mean of me.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Because what that means is you are completely comfortable playing a digital amp. Not only a digital amp, but a digital amp that sounds like trash to 90% of people, right? Or 70% of people. Again, if that's your tool and you can get away with it, more power to you. You have the cheapest amp on planet Earth. Go for it. Like, I can't make that work for me. I know Jim can't make that work for him, and I know a dozen other people that cannot make that amp work. So
I tried.
So they
had one in our church, and I tried. I could not dial a sound into that thing for life.
So the point of this is that he's coming from a very different place than I am, right? So my whole thing with the Kemper is that it sounds like a tube amp to an extent, right? As close as we can approximate. But what it really drives me is it feels like a tube amp. And I have said that numerous times on this show. That is the most important thing to me when buying an amplifier. I don't care if it's got tubes in it or not. I care if it feels right. And so even if I play an amp that doesn't have tubes in it, I don't look behind. I'm not looking to see what's in it. I don't care. It literally makes no difference to me. The way that I bought my Katana, I plugged into a Morgan. I plugged into a Supro Blackmagic. I think it was a JCM 800 that they had there. And then I was like, I can't afford any of these amps right now, but I need something as a backup right now. So I walked out on the floor and I started plugging into other amps. And I plugged into the Code. I plugged into, there's some solid state stuff and other digital amps. And I ended up plugging into the Katana. And the Katana was the one that reacted to my picking the strongest. I could pick cleanly and softly, and I was getting clean sounds. If I pick hard, I'd get distorted sounds. That's what I expect from an amp. I expect it to overdrive and push. And you hear that warmth and that, I hate to wax philosophical here, but that bloom. Bloom is the thing that happens when I do my first pour on my Chemex.
God.
Anyway. There's a little coffee humor for folks. But anyway, so this is the point, right? So Chris, this person that we're and I'm going to call him Chris for the remainder of this, but I'm not going to say his last name.
Yeah.
He's an individual that comes from a different place. And that's fine. Like, I get that side of it. But to go around and say something sucks or it's terrible because you don't like it or you're not able to use it properly, that's poor etiquette. Period.
Right. Well, I think here was my issue with it. So he gets on there and he makes the video. And the video, You can listen to it for yourselves.
More than
And
one video,
of course,
Jim.
then we'd have to
He
tell you who
made
it was.
three.
Right. Three videos. And in all three videos, the Kemper sounded better.
Yeah.
And he even said,
yes,
Kemper sounds better. I wish I had this sound in my Helix.
Yep.
I love the sound of this Kemper. Then said, but I'm not.
So here's his complaint. I'm going to share his complaint with the world. His complaint is...
You spoke with him directly.
Yeah. His complaint is when I took it to a gig, it got lost in the mix. So I offered him some solutions. I said, okay, goose your mids. And I said, go into the deep editing menu, and there's a couple settings I suggested he look at and consider changing. And to actually fight his instincts a little bit. Because that's our first instinct is to make it sound good by itself. But if you make it sound good by itself, you put it in a group context, it's not going to sound good.
I can't tell you how many times I've had that.
And
problem.
I also...
Even with a tubing.
And I also confirmed he uses the same monitoring system that he uses when he's playing out, and he's allegedly making the patches at the same volume level. Who knows? You know? But there were some other things that he had problems with, like, I can't split, and I honest to God, I can't. I understand what he was asking, but I'm like, why would you want to do that? He wants to set. Mm-hmm. He wants to send an effects out send, or any output into a stage wedge of just his guitar, and then send another wedge out to the PA. Why would you want to do both?
Why?
You know what I'm saying? Like, it just didn't make sense to me. I'm like, well, if you're going to send it out the PA, then just use a monitor mix and have your guitar mixed with the rest of the band. Because that's the way I would do it. Like, no questions asked.
That's the way anybody would
prefer to do it that way.
But why would you do...
He apparently wants a dry guitar mix on the floor there.
But why? I mean, I get it. I kind of get it. Because reverb does change if it comes... But you're not hearing it through there. You're getting it through the monitor.
So here's the really funny part, right? So he was saying, oh, this is not possible or whatever. And initially, I didn't think it was. But then I got on my manual. I browsed around, and I found, yes, there is, in fact, a way to do this. Via the XLR outs, even. Which is... So basically, what you do is you map both XLR outs to a mono of the main output send from the Kemper. And each of them are basically their own mono out, right? You run one to your thing. Now, maybe he's thinking, well, I want a stereo out, and then I want to just send one send out to the other. But I'm kind of thinking about it, and I'm like, wait a minute. The Helix doesn't have 3 XLR outputs.
Nope.
So how are you doing it on there? Because he's like, oh, well, the Helix does it. No, not if you're doing it the way I think you're doing it, which is a stereo out to the board and then a single XLR out. You would have to, there would be some skullduggery going on there. You'd have to have a direct box or something. Which, this is not a typical use case scenario. And to quote him, he said that, I believe it was with regard to that, he said there's a pile of dicks or something like that. And I'm like, okay. Like, so I'm being totally nice, this dude, like trying to walk him through this and like talking to him about this. And it was pretty clear, like, the course of the conversation, he'd already made up his mind. Like, he had already decided that he was going to stick with the Helix. I don't know why he was having this conversation with me, because he reached out to me. Right? So then I got to thinking, like, I saw him make some posts. I kept my mouth shut. I didn't get involved. And then this morning I saw him talking to Terrence Young, who is when you saw the video I sent you. I mean, he's an incredible player. And he does professional level gigs, and he uses, by the way, he uses the Kemper. I believe he also uses the Axe FX, and he uses the Line 6 Helix. And I saw him do his Kemper video that morning on the KPA page, and I was like, man, like, that guy can play. And then I go over and I see him, because I've seen him in other groups too. I see him in the Helix group, and I see this person that I'm having this interaction with, Chris, having a tizzy, like, you don't need a Kemper, it sounds like trash, or something like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. Like, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to fight. I don't need this negativity. Like, it just dawned on me. This is so much fanboyism. And then like almost immediately after that, I realized what was really going on. He's made 3 videos on YouTube, and he's posting them in the Kemper, or in the Helix group, slamming the Kemper. So what he's doing is he's stirring up the fanboys to go watch his videos and hopefully gather more viewers for his new burgeoning channel. And then that's when it dawned on me. This guy is like, he's playing the game like really hard. And it's kind of scary because somebody like me or Jim, we may not have caught on to that initially. And we're doing the same things not in the same way. Like we're not trying to manipulate the system into getting people to listen to our podcast. But we have taken out ads before and those kinds of things to get people to like find us. And hopefully the content sells us. But I felt very wronged by this. It made me feel stupid, number one, because it's like, why didn't I realize this in the first place? And then I got to thinking, like, I mean, I'm probably playing into his hands right now, but I think our listeners are smart enough to know, if you hear me talking about this, don't go seek these videos out. Don't bother. You're wasting your time.
Right.
But the reason I bring this up is because this is a form of shilling for someone's YouTube channel. And it was pretty clear to me that he knew that I had a podcast because we've talked before, and he's going, if I can stir him up, then he'll get mad at me on his show and he'll drive listeners to our videos. And I got news for you. Yep. I'm not giving the guy's full name to our full listenership. I did mention it in the Patreon group because somebody asked, but I am not putting his videos in the show notes. I refuse. That is ridiculous.
So I've got a video I want to talk about.
One more thing before we move on, and seriously, keep that in mind because I want to come back to your video
that I will not share. Oh, go
Bruce,
ahead. And I don't want people
Bruce
to
Egnator,
search.
Famous name, right? Like everybody knows Egnator amplification from a couple of years ago. He's the pioneer of these modular guitar amp systems. I would be highly doubtful that he's the first person to do a modular guitar amp, but he does have patents on it, and he holds pretty much like the only person who's done it somewhat successfully. And he's done it 3 times, right? So he did the Egnator system, and then he went over and he did the Randall modular system, which those I think were backwards compatible. And now he's doing Synergy. So he's the main head honcho for engineering over at Synergy.
That's what he's doing now. Okay.
Makes total sense, right? Like he's the pioneer of this. Yeah. Like he would be the guy that holds all the keys. He seemed like a good dude. He teaches an amplifier class, which I was very interested in taking. I would like to go and like learn to build amps. It's something that would
learn to build amps. Yep.
And I may still do it at some point. But I see him posting in the Kemper group, the KPA group, which is the Kemper Owners Association or whatever, like people who basically a Kemper users group. And
right.
This is what gets me. He's shilling for his product. He's shilling for Synergy. He's in the group and he's literally saying things like, I don't understand why people are buying Kempers when all guitar players pretty much only need 4 sounds. Like something like Synergy seems to make more sense to me. And he was like kind of asking the question, like, how many of you use more than 2 sounds on a gig? And I wanted to be like, you know what? That's none of your damn business. So what I did do was I called him out in the group. I posted a response to one of his things, and I said, you are shilling. And I said, I don't like it. I said, I have no clout here. But I said, somebody needs to call you out. And when the word show comes up, everybody will know that that's what you're doing. And I was like, second off, not everybody knows who your name right now because, there might be newer guitar players and stuff. But you're Bruce Egnator. Like, what are you doing? Because now you're giving your company a bad name too. Meaning either Egnator amplification or Synergy in this case, because everybody knows he's involved with that. So at this point, now he's just looking like an idiot. And I did reach out to him directly, and I said, I actually invited him on the show. I said, I would love to talk about Synergy on our podcast. I actually am really excited about that product. I've seen it in action. I think for a very specific user group, I think it's a fantastic tool. I have my criticisms of it, but I think they're minor criticisms. But my main thing was like, look, I'm going to send you a private message and I'm going to explain to you why people are buying digital modeling products over tube amps. And my explanation was basically price. You're talking about a system that is $1,700 for buy-in. It's $1,300 for buy-in. You have to have a $1,300 amplifier and then modules on top of that. So if you're going to buy one module and a $1,300 amplifier to start with, how much money is that, Jim? That's $1,800.
Exactly.
So plus tax.
One.
for
One
one
module.
module. So you have a well, I think they're dual channel. So you'd have a dual channel amp, but I mean, that kind of defeats the purpose, right? I can go buy, it's like if I buy the deluxe reverb module and I put it in the Synergy system, and yeah, it's got Haybor, transformers, all that, but I could go buy a deluxe reverb reissue for $700.
Yeah.
Like, why would I do that?
Or get the new digital one, and it's
Let's
even
not
lighter.
talk about that. Let's not go down that path. Although I applaud your effort, my friend. I mean, and that's kind of what I told him. It's like there's a price barrier, and I said there's also an exploratory barrier for many guitar players that don't have access to all this like really expensive vintage gear. This is the way they experience it, is through these digital emulations, and then a lot of times they'll go out and buy the real deal. My Sweetwater rep, Brant Miller, got introduced to matchless amplifiers through the Line 6 Flextone 3. He owns a matchless now, and several matchless-like amps. And that's my point, is that these are a gateway to something more...
bigger.
And so I don't think somebody like Bruce should be looking at them so much as competitors, because they're really not in the same market space. But, I mean, alas, he obviously feels threatened, which makes me wonder about the how well Synergy is doing, which kind of frightens me, because he's going around these groups saying this, like, that does not sound like a healthy company behavior. That sounds like a company on the brink. But be that as it may, I wish Synergy the best. I hope their product endures. I would like to have a Synergy system someday. But I think that there needs to be another generation and perhaps lower price point.
We should talk about the number of sounds. But first, I want to talk about another video.
Right.
Because this is my show notes. So I saw another video that said, I'm not going to slam Gibson, that proceeded to slam Gibson. And I'm not going to slam Gibson specifically about the destruction of those guitars. No. And I'm not going to say who it was, because I don't want to give this guy the time of day. I put a dislike on his thing and moved on. But, and I didn't watch the whole thing, because he spent the first 5 minutes doing exactly what he said he wasn't going to do. But I saw some other videos that talked about this. And what they were talking about, what the guy was talking about, was simple. He was talking about the fact that Gibson destroyed all this wood, and it could have been used in other ways. And I wanted to make something clear, because it's a difficult thing. First of all, the amount of wood that goes into guitars, because we're guitarists, we feel there's a shitload. Sorry. You can bleep that.
No, I'm not going
to. There is not as much wood as you think. I mean, yes, there is wood that gets wasted, but not as much as back in the 50s when they weren't as
well,
they weren't worried as much about it.
We've talked about this before. And, I mean,
but here's the thing. So a lot of it goes into so this guy was talking about it. He was talking about it like it was blood diamonds, that there are people out there killing each other over getting access to rosewood, and these governments that are being manipulated into selling the rosewood and other woods. First of all, those Gibsons that were destroyed had maybe 5 pounds of rosewood total. I mean, they were all, the fingerboard was the only thing rosewood.
Yeah, I mean,
and then it was,
but that's silly, because that's not what the rosewood embargo in CITES was all about anyway.
Right. And right, I know. And then he was talking about the mahogany and stuff. Here's the thing. And he said all those guitars weren't dangerous. Actually, you have to ensure that you don't want one of those guys getting. I'm not saying this happens, but if a bunch of those caught on fire, the fumes from that fire would be very noxious. And so,
I think,
that's the thing. But that's beside the point. Here's the thing I was getting at. So a few weeks ago, I saw this special on Sunday morning television, and they were talking about how these companies buy these products like Overstock.com,
right?
Macy's, not Macy's,
Nordstrom Rack and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
the budget places. Yeah. Okay, so they buy this stuff in big bulk. a large amount of that stuff winds up in landfills, people. If you want to start thinking about companies to go after, it's stop.
Big
We
Lots,
import-
Overstock.com. Well, Overstock.com.
Yeah.
So I have.
I'm not saying don't buy stuff from them.
I mean,
I'm just saying
this is a generalization because I know Overstock. I've worked for companies who've done business with them, so that's a whole other thing.
It's a whole circle of unfortunately, they call it a life cycle of a product. So some of these products, just like that, what am I going to do with that hair? That's why I mentioned the hair conditioner in the beginning. Yes. So what am I going to do with those 2 bottles of hair conditioner?
I'm going to go to the landfill.
All right. Am I going to give them to the poor? Does a poor person need my hair conditioner?
Well, they do, but there's really not a safe sanitary way to do that. So,
but yeah. And so then I throw it away. That's not good. So do I dump it down the toilet?
I think you should pour it on some metal and see how fast it rusts.
See, I'm so I'm caught into because I'm very conservative. I throw away 1 bag of trash a week.
Yeah.
Okay, 1. I recycle. So I am conscious of the environment and I do care. And so it bothers me to think that we're all in this uproar over
peanuts.
All these guitars that were peanuts in the grand scheme of things. Think about next time your furniture store. Look in the back. Go to a furniture store. Yeah. Go out back. Look at the stuff that gets trashed.
Yeah.
And think about the person that bought that brand new couch and the entertainment center and everything else that already had one.
Yeah, and then got it home and they were like, "Oh, I don't like the color," or "I don't like there's something wrong with the construction," or something.
Or those ones that come in and they think they're going to sell, they don't sell.
I think that's the least important reason to look at the Gibson video is like from a conservationist perspective, because let's face it, they're demoing a factory, folks. They're ripping it apart. That's like, this is just a part of that. So it's just, this stuff goes on. Like, you're not going to be able to stop it. And Gibson can't stop it.
And it goes on in all
Fender does it all the time. Every guitar you buy, if it has a fancy top on it and that top is carved, guess what? You bought the whole blank. You bought the sawdust they threw in the garbage.
That beautiful figure top I was talking about earlier on that Les Paul, there's a lot of sawdust as a result of that gorgeous top.
Yep.
And do you not buy it because of that? Do we not buy any more figure stuff? Maybe the best thing we can all do is only have box stuff. See what I'm saying? Yeah. It's just we've gone to a ridiculous is all I'm saying.
Well, how about this guy, Jim? This is going to be an unpopular thing, and I'm going to say it because I'm going to be controversial, but I'm going to put this to the group. How about if I tell everybody in the group, stop buying more guitars? Because that's the most conservationist thing you could do is to get the guitar companies to stop buying guitars or building guitars.
Here's another one. Stop buying amplifiers and cabinets.
They're made of wood.
The ones that are made of wood. Stop buying them. If you're so worried about it, stop buying those.
Yep.
Because they're made of wood.
And we have this man.
Oh, and all those tube amps.
We have this mentality that everything we buy is going to last forever and it's going to be an heirloom. And I know because I'm guilty of it. When I was a kid, like when I bought guitars, I think like this will be my signature model someday or whatever. And like, because we all have our fantasies.
Dream.
But you stop and you think about it and you're like, now that I'm an adult, I'm like, I don't even care if I have one. I'm kind of like looking at my situation. I'm going, well, signature model, like none of these guitars really mean all that much to me, except for, like the chosen few that are still hanging around from that period. And the reality is this, that like, they're basically the same guitars that existed before them. I mean, like there's nothing really all that special here. And so why have I had 10? Why did I just stick with the 3 that I need? So whatever.
I have 4.
Yeah.
Well, 4
yeah, but I mean, like
to be honest with you, I'll probably bring 2 to any gig.
Yeah, but if we went back in time, we like looked at the amount of guitars we've owned. Like we're not conservationist people at all, and I guarantee you, some of the guitars that I had are in a landfill somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure. I know what I burned one of them. So I put lighter fluid on that thing and torched it. I sent it into guitar heaven. So you can hate on me too. That plank of plywood.
Was it the silver tone?
Yes, it was the silver tone. And it was an original silver tone, folks. And yes, I burned that thing.
And you
I
still have
regret
zero
a
remorse.
Second of it. None. All right, so let's talk about that tool thing. We want to come back to that. So we have a Patreon group. You guys are welcome to join it or not. But if you are in the Patreon group, regardless of the price point that you're in at, you become a Patreon member and you get to get in on some of the back conversations we have during the week, which can blow up your phone. I have
it's hilarious because like every once in a while there'll be like 10 conversations going on in there at once.
They go crazy. Fun time to be had by all. So today, I think it was, right? Today, the conversation revolved around, the Chris thing. And then Jan Kish.
Jeff.
No. Jeff Bizadecki. Did I say the name right?
Bizadecki.
Bizadecki. Jeff mentioned that he really didn't see guitars as a tool. I'm going to say my side of it first because I know I know where you're going. But I took notes. So I want to say this before we go.
I can shut up for a minute.
I know you can. But only for a minute.
Really
so I'm going to go fast. All right, so I can see him. He's got his hand over his mouth. He's doing this, folks, with this thing. He's like Kenny. So anyway, Jeff made a point that he sees a guitar more like, and I'm going to say why I think it's not. He sees more like a brush, like a painter's brush, right? And that the painter's brush is more of a craftsman device that allows him to create the colors. I'm going to say this. I see the components of a guitar like the things that he's referring to. The pickups, the pots, the strings. In other words, the wires, I see the guitar as the brush and a brush as a tool. But the brush allows me to dip into the colors and then display the colors. So, in other words, I still see the guitar itself as a tool. And I think it's an important distinction. In that a brush, some people like a thick brush. They like a handle with a thick handle. Some people like a light handled brush. Some people like plastic ones. Some people like wooden ones. If you talk to artists who do this kind of thing, holy smoke, that thing is as personal as a guitar is for any of us. Which is as personal as underwear is for everyone that wears them and is not going commando today. So, in other words, when you're doing the broad stroke, the stroke that you're doing, I think the pickups are your and your strings and all those things. I think those are your paints, and those are not tools. Those are the color palette from which we choose. Does that make sense to you? I don't know. That's where I was. That's all I wanted to say.
All right. So we've done our philosophy on this show, but I'll take it back to the good old days. I believe, and this is my definition of music, and I'm going to go from the big to the small like I usually do. For me, the definition of music is taking sound and organizing it over time. So in an analogy to talk about paintbrushes and paint and art, like a piece of music is not the dots on the page. It is the organization of sound over time. Now, the way that we produce that sound could be any number of things. It could be pots and pans being banged together. It could be the ticking of a clock, right? It could be cash registers going off, like in money. And the way that we record these things are either we do it with sheet music or we do it with a record, like an actual physical recording, or we do it with, digital recording or however else, right? So that's the way that that's the canvas that we paint on, is these different forms of media. And I know we don't typically think of written music being a canvas like that, but if you stop and you think about the way they did it in the Middle Ages, they didn't hear the music before they played it. Like, they were often just playing it on the page, and they had to trust that their translation of that was correct. And it was up to the conductor to determine whether or not that was how they wanted to hear the music. So that's why live music is such a thing. It's a performance art in the sense that The performance is actually part of the artwork. It's part of that canvas. And what goes onto that canvas is sound. So I would argue that the paints are sound, right? And that the way that we manipulate those paints are through, and you're right. It's not just the guitar, right? Like that's the easiest way to look at it. It's like looking at a brush, right? But there's more to it than that. There's obviously amplifiers and cables and all that stuff if you get an electric guitar and pedals and a whole bunch of other pieces of that. But to give you some perspective, my mother actually, she paints watercolor, and she uses horsehair brushes with typical wooden construction. They're not spectacular, but they are any traditional brush like that is fairly expensive. And some of the other tools she uses is like mastic. So if you have to paint something that's white, what you do is you put this material down over the surface of the area that's going to be white, and you actually either peel it off or you remove it with like an eraser. And those are some of the things that people don't realize that goes into making a watercolor painting, right? If you've never painted watercolor, then your crash course. I think that those principles still apply in music, but they're in a different way. And so I actually completely agree with Jeff. And this was something that was really enlightening to hear somebody say, because I used to be the guy that was like, no, it's just a tool. Like, you can like tools. I mean, everybody has a favorite hammer or a favorite drill or a favorite, hacksaw or what. Hacksaw. If your favorite tool is a hacksaw, I want to shake your hand. So I'm just saying that everybody has their favorite item in the toolbox, right? And so when I hear someone talking specifically about paintbrushes as an analogy for the guitar and the whole ecosystem that makes up the instrumentation of a guitar. So I think guitar is really a system that includes the guitar, any sort of amplification, any sort of effects, and cabling and all that stuff. And we have the tonal hierarchy t-shirts for those of you that are interested. You can find them on our Threadless store.
I had people asking me about that when I was at the open mic.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Why I think this analogy works so well is because it explains the preference thing completely. And even for one person, my mother does not just paint with one brush, folks. She has a whole slew of wooden brushes. Some of them actually still are synthetic. Some of them are actually natural horsehair. And so when you stop to consider that all these different tools exist, and then you think about mixed media, and you got people, incorporating synthesizers and MIDI and stuff like that. Like this analogy is perfect. And it's really like, if you've ever picked up a guitar and felt like this guitar inspired you to play in this other way, like this other distinct manner, or if you picked up a guitar and you're in the studio or you're recording something in your house and you go, I really need a Les Paul on this track because that sound is appropriate for what I'm doing here, or those kind of decision making, that's no different than the artist saying, I need a broader swipe here, and I need to get more water in the brush, to hold more pigment in the brush. Now, the colors, that's, sound in general, but it could be something as simple as this is a loud sound, or this is a soft sound, or this is a major chord or a minor chord, or, it can get very complicated, or it can be very simple. Classic example is tone clusters. Anybody's familiar with music theory, if you've ever gone down that path, a tone cluster is basically just a cluster of notes that you hammer down with your hand on a keyboard. But that's essentially what I'm getting at here, is that yes, there are many components, and we can't leave technique out of it. The artist still has to hold the brush, and many artists can use one brush to do many things, but it really comes down to their technique. And even then, if you took two artists and gave them the same brush, you're going to be able to tell the artists apart because of the way that their strokes look. And so that's ultimately what's going on here. So we're talking about individual variation. So even the idea that you can take something like Steve Vai and put him through John Petrucci's rig, which was actually mentioned by Jeff, and that it's still going to sound like Steve Vai just through John Petrucci's rig, like, absolutely. And I think that also harkens back to the tone versus technique thing. And I didn't say this the last time we talked about it, but I'm tying my fingers together right now, because tone and technique are very close. They're separate, but they're intertwined. And we can use techniques to do a lot of those same things, which is what makes this whole abstract concept so bizarre. But I think Jeff said something that's like really important.
It is. It's extremely important. And to build on what you just said, we've talked a million times about how so-and-so can play through so-and-so's gear and sound like himself or herself, right? And matter of fact, let's use the word themselves. All right. So if that's the case, and it is the case, by the way, then when I go to your house or you come to my house, you play through my Marshall, I play through your Kemper. We're going to sound like ourselves. And I'm gonna go one step further. Have you ever heard a really good what do you call it when a person talks like another person? Impressionist, right? Impressionist. All right.
I've heard some bad ones too, but we're not going to go there tonight.
Yeah, but you've seen what was this? David Harvey, wasn't it? He was great. He used to do George Bush, right? All kinds of people doing really, really good impressions. There was that one guy, Frank something or other, used to do a ton of impressions. Right. He was really good. I did John Madden and everything. My point is this. If you listen to the impressionist and then you listen to the real person, right away you go, oh yeah, that's totally different. But when you first hear the impressionist and as you listen to him, you're like, oh, it sounds just like him. You know why? Because they pick up on
the things that you normally would associate with that person, but not all of the things that person does.
Right. The way they form a vowel, the way that they truncate their words, the way that they
actually have to go after what your brain initially recalls.
Right. Right. And so it's not as important necessarily to be exactly the same, but all those things, yeah. So that's why when you go see a Pink Floyd band, like I might go see the Australian Pink Floyd cover band. It's coming locally next week. It's like $25.
I want to see Maiden next week.
Anyway. I am so
Saturday.
Really, I am. But they only came as close to Richmond, and I just couldn't see me going 3 miles there, 3 hours there, 3 hours back, which meant an overnight stay because it was late night on a weeknight, and taking a day off. It just, I don't know. I've seen Maiden.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like I've never seen him, so for me, this is like a bucket
I've seen him. Yeah, I've seen him like 6 or 8 times. I could list off the albums, and it would take a long time. So anyway. But they were all before Dickinson left the first time, and then once after Dixon came back. So I've seen the show. Anyway, which is great, by the way. If you get a chance to see them, they're great. So my point that I'm making is that you could learn. Like David could sit down and show me his technique. He could teach me his technique, but I'm only going to learn so much of his technique. But the things, it's just like you can buy a reverb. Let's say you buy 10 reverbs or delays. Let's use delay because delay is a little more easy to analyze. Delay, let's call that the color pink, right? We put delay into our sound, the color pink into our sound. If I dial, that's where people do this all the time, by the way. The minute they want to show off a delay, what's one of the first bands
U2
that U2, and then they go to David Gilmour, right? Those are the two go-to bands they use for. It's that ping pong that David Gilmour loved to use. It's that U2 ambient big thing, right? So does it sound exactly like them?
Never.
At first, when you're listening to this chant, it's like, oh, that kind of sounds like,
I mean, the U2, but that's because the U2 stuff is basically just like it's a rhythmic thing.
Delays on top of
delays on top and that's a very sound like everybody acts like, oh, U2 only really did this one sound with the delay pedal, but there's a lot of stuff going on in that music with delay.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan, but I respect it. Like I understand it.
Yeah. I like them. I just nothing after Joshua Tree, please. Thank you. So anyway, the point that I'm making is this. You will never, ever, ever sound like somebody else. Don't chase it. Find a tone you like, stick to it. If it is a Spider 3 with a helix, Mr. Chris, then stick to it. That's your thing. It's your bag. It's fine. But don't try to tell everybody else that that's the way you should do it. Because I'm not going to listen to it. I'll play my SG through my Marshall, and I won't sound like Angus Young. But to me, in the moment, I'm doing AC/DC.
Can I back up
day
for a minute? So I'm glad you connected
Sure,
that back to the situation I was talking about. I want to back up for a moment.
Yeah.
I want to like we've all been to open mic nights, and we've all been to like shows, and you get to guitar players that stand in the audience with their arms crossed and they look at you. Don't be that guy anymore or girl. Just don't do it, because
don't be that person.
It's just ridiculous. Like I can't fathom. You're not supposed to go to a show hoping that the artist is going to fail. And that body posture immediately suggests that you're like, well, I got to judge them.
Yeah. The minute you cross your arms, folks, if you don't know anything about body language,
just don't judge people.
Yeah.
Look, I am guilty of doing this, and I'm the first to admit it, because I put in the hours, right? Jim, you put in the hours too. But like I feel like when I go into a place like that, I want to feel like I'm respected for the amount of time I put in. Granted, nobody knows how much time I put in, but I also get this like moment where you're on stage and you see the guys that are like kind of, yeah, I've seen this before. You get the feeling that like the cynicism is there, but then what really makes you like feel icky about the whole thing is they get up and play, or they don't get up and play, and they don't say anything to you after it either. And it's like, well, I would really rather have constructive criticism. What didn't you like about it?
Right.
And maybe I'll correct it. Maybe I'll just tell you to go jump off a bridge. But the reality is, standing there in the corner with your arms crossed, it just, look, you're not having a good time. You're not letting anybody else have a good time either. And that's a big part of, you want the energy in a venue. Like, be respectful. You wouldn't want the guy that's on stage doing that to you either. And so
exactly. And it doesn't put you at ease when somebody
I don't
does
care.
that.
I've gotten to the point where I don't even look at
I'm talking about the individual that's doing it. I'm not talking about you in particular.
I just see this as being the digital equivalent of that.
All right, so I'm going to say something. So I posted this thing that said, when the guy that steps on stage surprises you.
Yeah.
So this big, hefty guy who, I don't believe it or not, I don't do that. I don't prejudge the person.
Yeah, because I don't. You and I have both have seen people that were like, "What?"
Oh yeah, just seen too many people that does not look like a guitar player.
But then they come up and they just destroy you, and you're like,
and I just want to burn.
Yeah, you're like, there's not enough hours in the day.
I will never be that good. So, here's what I was saying. So, this guy comes in, right, and he was so good, but we didn't know it. And so he comes in. He's got, now what you can't see in that video that I posted in the group is he's got a scar. Folks can't see it, but it would start in the middle of one side of your head, go all the way around the front. It's obvious they had to fold his whole scalp back, right, to do stuff. And I knew, I was like, geez, his face looks kind of familiar, but one side has been like, like he had a stroke, type thing. And I said, geez. And I said to him, I said, don't I know you? And he goes, blah, blah. And I find out he was a musician on a cruise ship in Norfolk in the 90s. And I had taken my wife on that cruise. And I was like, I remember you. Yeah, you were really good. And not to say he wasn't good now. I always feel terrible when I say, you used to look really good. It's kind of like, wow, you look like crap now. But anyway, so I said, you were really good. I really liked your stuff. He goes, oh, thanks. But, I've lost a lot of movement in these. And he showed me his hand. He got shot up. His car got shot up in a drive-by, right?
That's horrendous.
Thing. So it was like right out of like Al Capone type thing. And the 90s was, and they left a bullet lodged in his hip. They said it would do too much damage to take it out. What happened was he got severe lead poisoning from the bullet. So it actually wound up causing more problems than it would have to take it out the first time. And so he has a limp and his hips are back. He gets up on the stage and I'm like, you know, he was saying, "Oh man, I suck now." And I'm like, "Oh geez." And you see by the videos, that's his version of "I suck now." By the way, that's his. I was like, "Oh, then you're gonna think I really suck. I am not even getting on that stage. I'm taking my name off the list. I'm gonna get out there."
Look,
so it was it, and the week before that, didn't I post another one where this guy got up there? He puts down his amp. He's got one pedal, got a tuning pedal, and he's got a tube screamer. Puts that Fender down on the stage, and that guy ripped it up. And I swore to God, now I've seen Stevie Ray Vaughan live. I was like, "Holy crap, that guy!" That was that was my impressionist thing that I was talking about earlier. He had the way Stevie Ray Vaughan would build his solos and create that was there. That was there. I was like, "Wow!" And I told him, I said, "I got to get you on the show. You are incredible. We got to talk to you because we are big, guitar player fans." And anyway, that was my point. And that I think that goes to what David says is don't look at anybody who gets on that stage that has the guts to get up there and do that thing, whether it's solo, whether it's with a band, whether they're playing rhythm, whether they're playing solos, doesn't matter. They've got the guts to go up there and express themselves. Don't slam on people. If you got some constructive criticisms, that's one thing. Hey, you were a little loud, or your high end was a little spiky. Some people aren't
going to be professionals. They don't want to be.
Right.
Now,
but try.
There's another reason why you should do this. And that is, if we're living in a world where guitar is starting to wax and wane, right? The styles of music are changing. Pop music doesn't have any real instruments to be in it anymore. Remember that we need to respect each other because we need to soldier on. And that is, like, if we start turning on each other and saying negative things and acting a fool, we're not gonna, the instrument's not gonna be around. I mean, there's just not gonna be people out there pushing it and making it do new things and all this stuff. So it's good for the instrument, basically, for us to be like, camaraderie amongst one another and to encourage growth. Do you think any of the older cats who couldn't do let's take, for example, who's the guy I'm thinking? Larry Carlton, right? Session player. And then also solo artist later. Do you think when Eddie Van Halen came out that Larry Carlton crapped his pants and was like, "Oh my gosh, the game has changed. I don't know what I'm going to do now"? No, of course not. Absolutely not. He was like,
Larry Carlton kept being Larry Carlton.
It's Larry Carlton. I guarantee you he was like, "Yeah, that guy's really good. And like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but he's also sitting there going, he's pushing the state of the guitar. Like, there'll still be work for me. It's not like it's going to dry up because this guy's out there, but it does mean that I have to be on my toes." And he already knows that anyway, because there's other session players that are probably pushing into his gigs anyway at that time. At any time, really.
Of course. Larry Carlton, that's mid-late 70s, early 80s. So you've got you got the stuff he did.
Steely Dan.
He worked with Steely Dan. He worked with
other artists as well.
You had Frank Gambale. You had what the heck's his name? Older guy, the weird beard. Not Billy Gibbons, but obviously Billy, who? Demiola. He was later.
He was in the mid-70s.
Yeah, but he started really pushing in the 80s because he went with that fusion. He moved jazz.
Well, he was playing acoustic in the 80s. He'd start. He I think it was 73.
He completely changed
Highway
that
came
style.
out or whatever. I think it was 1973. Yep. I get where you're going with this. It was like
Skunk Baxter. That's who I was thinking of. Jeff Skunk Baxter.
But the whole point of this excursion is that we shouldn't be afraid of people who are better than us. And I'm guilty of this. I walked out of a show seeing Paul Gilbert a couple months ago, And I said to Jeff when we were walking out, I said to him, well, I'm just going to go home and quit. And
yep. I'm selling all my stuff, and I'm going to start selling cars.
And like, it hit me because I'm like, well, but I can't play like that. But at the same time, it's like, I don't have to play like that to express myself. So yes, I get it. Like, I get what he's saying, and I follow along now, and I get it more than I ever did. But as it relates to this argument, don't hate people who are better than you. Try to learn from them. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to do what they do. It just means that you have to be thinking about how you can do what you do better so that you can stay relevant.
That's right. You didn't hear David Gilmour going, oh man, Eddie Van Halen.
He was self-critical at times too, because he would talk about,
now I can't do the
play
wall
fast. But what I do, but he would always preface it with, what I do is this.
Right.
So just understand that, like, your specialty may not be being Eddie Van Halen. It might be being, who's the guy from Oasis? I forget what his name is offhand.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody thinks of him as a great guitar player, but he played on some big records, like, I can't stress that enough.
Well, the guy from REM. The guy from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Can we talk Jack White for a minute?
What the heck is
Because it came up.
Jack White.
I know we're an hour and a half. This would normally be the show end. We're moving into the final segment here. We're gonna keep going. If you don't like it, turn it off. We're not consciously trying to push the show to 2 hours. The target is an hour and a half. But Jim and I are long-winded, and so we're sorry.
No.
We actually do think about these things, folks. So yeah, somebody in the group, and I think it was you, shared the article. Jack White and Jack Black are going to do a project, which I don't even know if that's a real thing, but
no, it's supposedly real. They're calling it Jack Gray.
They did like a song or something this summer, but I don't know if it's going to turn into like a real band or whatever. And it's really not just Jack Black; it's all of Tenacious D. Him and Kyle Gass or whatever.
The whole Tenacious D.
Which is fine, right? Like, okay, I'm
all I was saying was, if I don't want people to look at it, to share it, to see it, I won't share it.
Yeah.
So like that guy's video I talked about earlier, I'm not saying I'm just saying it's not my bag. I'm not crazy about it.
So I'm not a huge Jack White fan, and I've been very public about it.
No.
I was encouraged by a few of the podcast group people on the side to go and listen to some of Jack White's stuff. What I basically knew of him was like White Stripes and like the first album he did outside of White Stripes. And I was not, look, I'm not going to go back and listen to that material. I'm going to make it very clear to everyone. That stuff does nothing for me. But what I will say is this, like, as an artist, he is certainly in the vein of a lot of the other modern artists today. And does things in a very specific way that I could see people really gravitating towards. You know what it reminds me of, Jim? St. Vincent. And that's a contemporary of his. And so I kind of look at, yes, and of course, obviously St. Vincent does the kind of like Bjorkish stuff too. Bjork, I say it right, yeah.
Bjork.
Obviously, there's like this whole Bjork, Peter Gabriel thing going on with St. Vincent that I don't really see it fitting in and dovetailing into like what Jack White does. But what I will say is this: Jack White has evolved. He is not what he was when he was in the White Stripes. And his selection of guitars and all that stuff, like, as much as that's why I usually make fun of him for, because he was saying like, I have to fight it and all that stuff. And it's like, no, really, dude, you just like, you didn't have an endorsement deal. You wanted to be trendy, which more power to you. Like, you need a visual look on stage, and your music was very retro inspired. So playing airlines and stuff like that makes sense. But I want to go back and I want to do the history lesson. So right after White Stripes ended, he started getting custom guitars built for him. He had the one with the microphone built to do. I forget what the builder was that made that for him. But do you think that guitar played like garbage? No, absolutely not. Do you think his airlines played like garbage?
Of course not.
I doubt it.
No.
I doubt it. Not like the airlines
I'm sure he
played.
found good ones.
and that the T-scos and stuff from that period, if they've not been worked over and like been well taken care of, or are one of the rare like examples of a good guitar, they're terrible. They're awful guitars. And so
there's a early one at Guitar Center right now that's like,
I can see
expensive.
why people don't like Jack White, because it's on the image thing. A lot of what he does is image based, and he gets his Fender deal, right? And you would think he's got like his pick of the litter of Fender style guitars that he would take, right? And so you'd think naturally Telecaster, right? That was my first inclination. Telecaster followed by like Jazzmaster. But no, he went completely in the other direction and was like, no, I'm going to take EVH. And I kind of wonder if that's based on like this is the opposite approach that people are going to expect me to take.
I think didn't he start with the Gretsch though? Didn't he start when it was with Fender?
I don't know if he ever played a Gretsch. I mean, you might be right. I don't know.
Actually, Fenders, but then he moved to the EVHs, which again, I respect. Look, I respect everything he does. I really do. If somebody's doing,
he's selling records. Somebody likes him.
That's awesome.
I mean, what? White Stripes is over what? 20 years ago? Close to it, like 15 years ago or something. Because I was in high school when
I'm still playing that crappy song in the cover bands.
No, I think I was in college when they ended, but it was like right after I got out of high school. That's dating myself. It was mid-90s, I'm 34.
Right? Late to mid-90s.
So,
shut up.
When I think about that, like, and the fact that he did a Bond theme and like all this other stuff in between, which. How they gave Jack White and Alicia Keys a Bond theme, I still don't understand. But not that I don't dislike Alicia Keys, but it just seems like a really odd choice.
Yeah, that was an odd choice to put them together. So
actually,
maybe that was part of it.
You know what? And that's the thing. I don't think that is necessarily such an odd choice to put them together, because really what Jack White aspires to be is like, Son House or somebody like that.
But I see Alicia Keys more as jazz instead of blues.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I could see that working in some strange,
I love her voice,
like, place, Whereas
I feel like that scene in This Is Spinal Tap when they're like, is it blues jazz or jazz blues?
Wouldn't it be really funny if it was Jack White and Britney Spears?
Yeah, that would be
even better. Jack White and Christina Aguilera. Not only is it one of the female divas from the early 90s, but it is the Latin influenced female diva from the early 90s.
Jack White, if you're listening,
yes,
we dare you
to
find Britney Spears and
Christina
do a song.
Aguilera.
Christina Aguilera. Yes. Yeah, even better.
I actually can do either one. I'm not going to care.
Her hips won't lie.
Shakira. I want to hear him play.
Shakira. Oh yeah, that's right. Why do I keep thinking that's Christina Aguilera? Christina Aguilera, she's the one that was on
Genie in a Bottle, Jim. Genie in a Bottle.
Yeah. Yep.
I would say Mandy Moore, but that's really not something you should bring up these days because of the whole thing with her ex-husband.
Yeah, no. So here's the thing. For the reason I shared that is because I knew some people would be interested in it. I knew that there are people in our group that would sincerely like that, and that's why I share stuff in my group. I put my opinion on it. Put your opinion on it. I'm less. It's not Jack White I'm less interested in. It's Jack Black. I could give a crap about him doing a song.
Did you see what came up in that group then, like as the thread went on? Because it got like really deep, and Jay and I and Nick were all but basically what came up was that like Nick and I don't like the Eagles, and that apparently means that I've hoisted the sickle and hammer.
Oh my God!
That's what I've been told. I am not a communist, folks. You don't not liking the Eagles does not mean you're not an American. Let me make that very clear. It means you're not as capitalist as other Americans, maybe.
Okay, I don't dislike I dislike
I
Henley's
very dislike
business policies
Henley.
and
I
Felder's
dislike
business
probably
policies.
80% of their music.
But as far as musically, I love their stuff. I love what they did. I love the way that they took
Well, it's right in your
folk rock,
right in your alley too, though.
country
Like you're
rock.
way into that kind of pop
Right.
music.
And
So
remember, I grew up with that. I mean, that was my not just my childhood in the mid '70s, but my going into my adulthood. They broke up when I was in
you know
high
what
school.
it reminds
right?
me of? Like when somebody talks about the Eagles now. It reminds me of that line in the Steely Dan song where he turns about
Old
he
people?
it says turn up the Eagles, the neighbors are listening.
FM.
Yeah, that's
So-
the song. Yep.
Yep, FM. FM. Yeah, that's definitely it. I grew up. Let me tell you something. So, I think I grew up in one of the most magical.
Oh yeah,
times
no,
of
for
music.
sure.
Because we had stuff as weird as
Dude,
Pink Floyd,
The
Mahavishnu
fact that
Orchestra. We had
people my age are listening to the stuff from your age that many of us still do.
Yep.
That's a testament to how crazy the music was.
Yeah, it was just a magical time. I think some of the most beautiful and weirdest music created was during that time. I mean, Todd Rundgren. You ever listen to Todd Rundgren's catalog? First of all,
He's a
folks,
baby
one thing you should
Frank
know about Todd
Zappa.
Rundgren's catalog, he was. But you know what else about Todd Rundgren? He did everything. He was one of the first guys who goes, "Yep, I'm playing drums. I'm playing keys. I'm doing all the vocals. I'm playing all the guitars." That guy was crazy. And he was also, when he would tour, because he didn't want to deal with other musicians, he would play the tracks. So, not all the time. He later toured with the Cars, by the way, about, I don't know, 10 years
Yeah.
ago. Not quite 10 years ago.
I think
toured with
actually
Cars,
he's
but-
like groundbreaking in a lot of ways, and I think that's one of the big ones is like he played tracks like that was when that was unheard of.
But yeah, I grew up in Frank
Who
Zappa's era,
refused
right?
to play two tracks. He would get the most insane musicians alive to play these insanely complicated arrangements. Have people men dressing up in dresses and everything else on stage to make it happen.
Yep. He had a woman playing xylophone.
Yeah.
On tour.
Yeah, well, she was a fan of them too before they that was the whole thing. He started composing this stuff for xylophone, and she was a fan that was hanging out at all the shows, and he found out she played xylophone. So he's like, "Oh yeah, come on."
It was. I mean, it was a magical time to see that stuff.
Somebody like Frank Zappa today could not get a record deal. It would never happen.
No.
The closest thing we have is Devin Townsend, and he got a record deal because he was involved with Steve Vai. I mean, it's not like it's not like this stuff is you're just going to walk into your local club and see a band that's performing Hot Rats, in its entirety.
Absolutely not. And that's the thing. I think we go back to this palette thing. We talk about that stuff. So a friend of mine, his or her daughter is in LA right now recording an album, right? And she's laying down these tracks. So my friend, she's playing me the music. It's original music, so I couldn't share it if I wanted to, because it's not out.
Plus, it's
in the public.
It's owned by the record company to some extent.
No, that's just it though. She paid for the whole thing. It's not owned by anybody.
She's producing independently then.
So she's it's independent production. Well, she got a producer.
Yeah, but she's paying them, and she owns all the material.
Right.
All right.
Exactly. She owns all the
Which
rights
is the way
now.
most records
Right,
are being done nowadays.
Yeah, and it's a good thing, So, what I was going at with this is, so she's out there, she's doing that thing, and I listened to it, and I said to her mother, because
Jim said word to your mother.
who
No,
shared
Jim.
it. Yeah, I did say word to her mother. I said several words to her mother. So I said, all right, it's really good. I said, I really like it. Here's the problem. It also sounds like 1,000 other songs on the radio right now.
Take some risk.
And I want to bring that, and I want to bring that to the recent other news. This will take us to 2 hours in the news. is the most recent. I think it's the most recent thing in the news is so Katy Perry got sued for sounding like a Christian song, and it was Adam Neely, who I'm saying these names because these people know their stuff. I mean, we know our stuff too, but I'm trying to drop names that they do this knowing their stuff for a living stuff. All right, Adam Neely, who's a guy, Rick Beato, and the guy that does 12 Notes, all said that the people that made that decision are idiots. But Adam Neely made a point. Can you own tone? That's something we should discuss bigger in the next show.
Big
but the
topic.
question that I want to pose to you folks in the group, because believe it or not, part of the lawsuit was because she stole the tone. They claim, I don't hear it. I heard both songs. I see everything Adam. I would have come up with exactly what Beato and Neely came up with. Not the exact notes, but I would have said the same thing. This is not the same song. This is not who was it? Ice-T? Or not Ice-T. Who was the one that did
that would be
yeah. It was not that. He was like
Vanilla Ice.
Ding 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 ding. Not ding, yeah, Vanilla Ice. That was it. I knew there was ice in it. It was not Vanilla Ice saying he didn't do Under Pressure. So that I just want to leave it at that. Can you own tone?
Well, I'll propose this too. I think there's
with all this digital gear.
No, I think there's another bigger question here, and it could be posed for the next episode as well. And that is, what is the efficacy and ethical ramifications of the Kemper of doing modeling, and user made modeling? What is the ethics involved in that? I mean, realistically, and let me lay this out so that we can have some discussion in the group on it before we do the next episode. But the ethical ramifications of this are, I'm taking the sound of an amplifier that somebody put blood, sweat, and tears into both the design, development, and engineering that created this physical artifact, right? I'm taking the sound of that, and I'm making a recording that can then process my other stuff, which means that I have basically stolen what you've created. Maybe not in the physical sense, but you know what I mean? And
I get you. I
and
100%
if you're Dr. Z. Now, Dr. Z is a really fun example to talk about because Dr. Z saw people making profiles of his amps and he said, they don't represent my amps. So he made his own. He actually took the amplifiers and tweaked
Can't beat them, join them.
So that there would be Kemper profiles of his amps that were more like the real deal than what was already currently available.
You know what? I love that, by the way. I think that's a great question for the group. I think that people should obviously comment on this. More importantly, do you remember when I think it was line 6, it was first, right? They were kind of
Johnson was probably the first, but
right. But so line 6 used to have on their early amps, it used to say Fender Tweed, Fender this, Gibson,
they got a cease
Marshall
and desist.
That. Then they got cease and desist. So that is a valid question. That's what reminded me of the fact that now it says 60s British, which obviously means Marshall. Yet we've talked about it before. Early Marshalls.
It would be really interesting to ask the question of whether or not those cease and desist letters were because they were claiming that they had copied the sound, or was it because they had come close but failed so miserably that Fender didn't want their name attached to it. And that would be interesting because I could see an alternative world where line 6 approaches the manufacturer in the beginning and says, hey, we're making this model of your amplifier. We'd like to include it in our device. Here's the licensing fee.
Yep.
we'll make the model, but you're going to pay this fee so that you can be included on our product. And
Yep.
obviously, if this had been 5 years later, with all the things going down with like iTunes and in the music industry and all that, I think the manufacturers of the stuff, specifically like Fender and Marshall and places like in Vox, who was owned by Marshall at the time, and
Yep.
some of those other organizations would have been more kind to that kind of arrangement than they ended up
Yeah.
becoming, because now there's all these competing digital products. I could have honestly have seen like 2 or 3 companies come out with, a licensed, I've got the Marshall license, so all of our products are over here at line 6, and then the other guys are like, well, all my products are over at Johnson, like Fender's over at Johnson. That world could
Not
have
Johnson
happened.
and Johnson.
It could have happened. And it would have all it would have taken is somebody
Yeah.
not to have had the forethought to develop the Axis 212 when they did.
Yeah. Well, they've jumped on the
they have their own. They have their own platform.
Is making their own. Better making their own. I want to say this before we go, when you bring it up in the group, I want to say, just in a short thing, is that I think that if they're making the models now, let's say, like you were talking about with Dr. Z, making the models now, Dr. Z did what he did because he felt that the profiles weren't
Right.
close enough to what he had, right? I want to say this, and I want to remind people of this. Those profiles are made by a person.
Mm-hmm.
So those profiles are as good or as bad as they were created by the person
Right.
who created those profiles. I'm not saying the person was good or bad. I'm saying whatever they did and however they created them could have been good or bad. The process. I think we should talk about that next episode too, is about how you make a profile.
I'm willing to. In fact, I could probably do it right now, but I'm more than excited to discuss that, because it's an interesting procedure, and it does require actual engineering. Like, you have to be smart enough to know how to do certain things to make this whole thing go off and work properly.
Yeah.
And I will freely admit, I am much better recording guitar with a microphone in front of a speaker cabinet than I am making Kemper profiles. But that being said, my Kemper profiles, because the Kemper's kind of foolproof on it, I can use them for certain things. I just don't think that the cabinet sounds were that great. So efficacy of modeling, let's talk about it. Let's talk about, and that can lead back into this whole discussion of, do we own tone? Can we own tone?
Right.
And
I'll put a link to that Adam Neely and the 12 tone.
Well, I think it's
12 tone.
I think it's also worth talking about,
discussion.
like, the basics of copyright infringement in music, like what is permissible, what's not. Because I think there's a tendency, even when do you remember back when who was the acoustic folk player, the guy from Britain that was real popular right now? He stole the song from Marvin Gaye.
Oh,
Ed Sheeran stole
Ed
the song
Sheeran.
from Marvin Gaye,
Sure.
right? And he kind of admitted, like, yeah, I did. But he stole the chord progression. And the chord progression isn't necessarily the same thing as the melody. And so because of that, I think he got out of that without even having to pay a dime.
Oh no, they made a few
were they able
million
to
on that
to insinuate that, like, he stole melody as well?
I'm going to ask another question of the group. So the morality, I want to ask you what you think about the morality. Marvin Gaye is dead, obviously. It is his family that sits around, does nothing music.
We're actually
has never done anything music.
We're kind of
Who went
responsible
after
for his demise, if you know the story.
Yep. Look into it.
That's a creepy situation.
Yep, that's a story of itself, but it is not a podcast.
No.
Practical Guitars podcast.
So I do want to. I did have one thing I wanted to include at the end of the episode. I'm going to start talking more about this stuff on each episode, because I think there's a tendency for some listeners who probably aren't involved in the Facebook group or whatever to forget that there is one. We have a Facebook group.
Please.
join it. Enjoy the conversation and the camaraderie with both people who are members of the Patreon and aren't members of the Patreon. We have Patreon. All of this stuff is in the show bumper at the beginning of the episode. I don't have it written down, so I'm not going to read it off now. But you can find us on Patreon. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook.com/groups/Practical Guitarist Podcast. I would encourage you to do these things because if the more you participate in the community, the more that it spreads the word of the show. Again, in the beginning of the episode, I always tell everyone, please leave us a review on the place where you found our podcast, albeit iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play, whatever. I think it did a really good job of remembering the actual list. And mostly just reach out to everybody involved in the show. We're gonna try to start a Patreon Discord. I'm gonna see what's involved in that, and we will probably set up some sort of schedule like where we go on for an hour a week or something, and make sure that we interact with our Discord listeners and our Patreon subscribers. And I think that is a great way for us to give back to our Patreon community because we just don't generate a ton of content that is specific for Patreon. I've had some issues. I'm also intending to get the episodes out early for Patreon listeners now. That we've had some issues doing that because the service where we've got our podcast hosted, they're on a new platform, and getting the episodes down from them has been a bit of a hassle. But I'm going to try to do better with that. So hopefully the episodes will go up on Mondays for Patreon listeners, and then be published out to the audience at large on Wednesdays. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in, as we don't regularly do. We just kind of usually leave you hanging and sitting with us for the 2 hours where Jim and I ramble, or mostly I ramble and Jim says something important every once in a while.
And then I hit the little mute button on my and I sit here and type because I'm typing to you guys all the time. So
yeah, Jim, it's so funny because Jim actually is like, I would say Jim is more than 50% of the show. Jim keeps me on the tracks so I can just ramble.
Yeah, so he can just go
needlessly.
We put a point out and then David takes it.
Yeah, it's usually I steal it and I'm interrupting him constantly, and Jim's very patient with me, and I can't think of enough for not being like, you stupid asshole. I swear, I've seen Jim's hand come right through my monitor, right to my face. He's just gonna hit me like really hard because he's like, shut up. No, that's never happened. Jim does not have powers of transferring his body through electrical signals.
But I do have a huge hand, by the way.
Yeah, he does when he gets
I do
close.
have huge hands. And when they get real close, they're giant, but I do have big hands for my size.
Just one really big finger.
I'm a short guy, right? But when
every episode.
When I sit next to tall people, we sit about the same. And it's funny because people are like, wow, you don't look so short until you stand up.
And then you stand up and you're like,
thanks. It just shows you that my legs are really like this long. Yeah. And the rest I'm supposed to be 5'10".
With arms like tree trunks.
Yeah, with arms. I know because I've measured my arm length.
For those of you who haven't seen Jim before, he looks like the guy in the Brawny.
Yeah.
Favorite tower.
Yeah, kind of.
I'm kidding.
No, I actually look more like so when I was young, I looked a lot like Mark Hamill.
I could see that.
Yeah. And people often confused me with Michael J. Fox or Mark Hamill, which was kind of weird.
Well, you are short, so I could see the Michael J. Fox thing too.
Anyway, we'd love to thank you for joining us. I've been Jim with my new SG, and this has been David with his new.
No, we don't.
AZ
with another guitar.
We're both not. We're both no longer on any wagons. We fell off, and I am not going on a wagon for a while because I'm buying.
I don't do wagons. Like
I'm buying
this
a
is the
Harley
20th
Benton.
century, man.
I'm buying a Kemper.
I jumped out of the plane,
getting a Les Paul. Yeah, that I fell flat on my face. Boom.
No, I'm literally at the end of my rope on that too, by the way. So, yeah. Anyway, I've been David.
I'm a Jim.
And tonight we've been Practical Guitarists.
Woo-hoo!
Yay.